Thanks for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. On today's show, it's the Hall of Fame show because it's Hall of Fame season. The ballot came out for this year, and there are a lot of familiar names for Yankee fans. And I've been dreading this since 2016. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Yankees.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. As I said, this is the Hall of Fame edition of Locked On Yankees. The Hall of Fame ballot came out today, and we're recording this on Monday for Tuesday. It's Tuesday show. Hello, I'm Stacey Gotsoulias, joined by Abby Mistracco. Abby, how are you?
I'm great. I'm ready for Thanksgiving. Are you?
I am, yes. And as I said on yesterday's show, we have the food in the fridge. I opened the fridge this morning and saw everything and thought to myself, I can't wait for Thursday.
I have to go shopping still. My friends and I made our we went through in our group chat today to determine who was making what so that there was no confusion.
Nice.
I got sweet potatoes. I gotta make
Nice.
sweet potatoes.
Oh, yes. I love sweet
And
potatoes.
cranberries. I have to make
Nice.
cranberries too.
Nice. It feels like in recent years, a lot of people are poo-pooing Thanksgiving. Oh, it's not that great, and I don't like turkey, and I don't like this, and what's wrong with you people? Thanksgiving's great. It's the one day of the year you have an excuse to just pig out and do whatever you want.
I
And
love
no one sa-
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and no one says anything bad about you. You have football to watch, you have the parade to watch, you eat until you pass out. It's like one of the best days of the year.
And I don't go back to California for Thanksgiving. I'll go back for Christmas this year. I have not in recent years. This is the first time in like 5 years I've actually gone back for Christmas. But Thanksgiving I spend with my friends who live on the Upper West Side, and they were both bartenders. And like I swear, my friend, just the way that her like table settings, like fancy cocktails that she does, like the way that she decorates, it looks like something out of like a Martha Stewart catalog, but it's actually like it's a fun party. Like
Hmm.
they have like themed games and drinks for us. Like it's fantastic. It's great. It's the best
Yeah.
party of the year.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine from high school who has since passed away, but he was a chef, and he would make it a point every year um, to cook for people who didn't have a place to go on Thanksgiving. And he would sometimes be cooking for up to 15, 16 people by himself, and he loved
Oh
doing
wow.
that every year. Yeah, he was amazing. I never got to go because I always had somewhere to go like, with my family and stuff, but I always thought that was the coolest thing. And that's what, Thanksgiving is really about being with your
Yeah.
friends and your family. I know there's a lot of other things with Thanksgiving we're not going to get into on a sports podcast, but before we get into what we're actually going to be talking about, which is Hall of Fame season, you can get Locked On Yankees in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, all those good places. You can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Yankees, and you can watch and subscribe on YouTube. So, Hall of Fame ballot came out on Monday. As I said at the top, I've been dreading this for 5 years.
Have you really been dreading this, or have you just been like waiting to unleash these opinions? Your
Okay,
taste.
true. Okay, so it's kind of dreading, and I didn't have a podcast 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I would have thought that I'd be writing an article about this. So the fact that I can yap about this and people can see my face as I
Ooh.
talk about some of this stuff, because Stacey doesn't have a poker face. So yeah, you're gonna see.
Emotion. They can almost feel it through their
Mhm.
computer screen.
You're gonna see it. Yeah, I always
That
joke
face right there.
about um Below Deck on Bravo, the show about
Yeah.
yachting, and I could never be a stew. I could probably be a deckhand because I wouldn't have to deal with the guests that much.
Yeah.
But there's no way I could be a stew because I would just be making faces all the time and the tips would just go down because I don't hide my disdain or anything for people, especially if they say something obnoxious. So yeah,
Well,
You'll see
so
my face. So
what we all discovered in like we as in like reporters discovered during quarantine was that we all make faces in scrums, and like there were times when I didn't realize I was like visibly reacting. Like, sure, I've had some other writers or like people who are in the room or like camera guys be like, "Oh my God, your face when he said that," blah blah blah. But then when we were all on Zoom and we were suddenly looking at ourselves, it was like, "Oh God, I made that face. Oh, I didn't want them to see that I made. Oh, they saw that. Everybody saw that." And then teams would start tweeting out screenshots of like these big Zoom press conferences.
oh no.
Now a lot of the teams don't use like the Zoom rooms with like our faces on it. Now it's just like one, like the Yankees. We just have to like do the raise hand feature and like it's just the person who's talking. But you sometimes it does so like intersplice with the person who's asking the question, but you know that person's typically only asking a question very briefly. In the very beginning, all these teams, and some of them still do this, like I was just on a press conference the other day, and like my face was up there and like everybody can see, and I'm like, poker face.
Yeah.
Oh, but he said something really stupid.
Right. Was it Lindsay? Who was it? It was someone in a Yankee scrum standing next to someone. And I don't think the person was actually rolling their eyes at the person who was talking, but the person taking the picture got them rolling their eyes. And it just looked so bad. And my first thought was, oh, that would be me every day. I would constantly be making faces, not meaning to, but doing it anyway.
I have like the worst resting mean face.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
And like this goes as far back as like elementary school. People like my teachers would call my parents and say, "She always looks angry and unhappy and annoyed in class." I'm like, that's just my face. I'm 8, okay? How do you know what I'm thinking? I'm 8. I'm 8 years old, and you're telling me that I have a mean face.
That's so funny. Oh my God, that's so funny. It's true though. You know, and females and femmes and non-males get more crap for that than a guy ever would.
Yeah, seriously,
you know,
right?
It's unbelievable how, so, all right, quickly, just before I have to do stuff, okay. So the ballot, we have 4 guys on their last year: Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, Sammy Sosa.
Yeah, I don't see it even getting in.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for Curt Schilling to like take his ball and go home again.
Yeah.
Oh, I asked them to take my name off of it. That's not how this works. You don't get to ask them to take your name off of it. You know, like, oh, you didn't fire me. I quit. No, you got fired, buddy. I can't wait for whatever like tweet storm it is this year. I'm thoroughly entertained by that.
Yeah. Then we have the newbies coming in. So Carl Crawford, Prince Fielder, Ryan Howard, Tin Lincecum, Justin Morneau, Joe Nathan, David Ortiz, Jonathan Papelbon, Jake Peavy, AJ Przinsky, Alex Rodriguez, Jimmy Rollins, and Mark Teixeira. Those are all first-time guys coming on the first time. They all stopped playing in 2016. Kind of amazing that the new class is that big, but not surprising if you've been paying attention every year. And yeah, I have thoughts. We'll talk about it in the second section. And then returning, Bobby Abreu, Mark Burley, Todd Helton, Tim Hudson, Torrey Hunter, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, Andy Pettit, Manny Ramirez, Scott Rowland, Gary Sheffield, Omar Vizquel, and Billy Wagner. So those are the names. And it's, yeah, there's some stuff that I have to say about that, but we'll do that in segment 2 because before we do that, I have to talk about betting. Maybe we can bet how angry I'm going to get during segment 2.
I put a lot of money on you getting angry in the second segment.
Yeah. Because as we've been saying, it's Thanksgiving, and we all know what that means: football and, you know, food. And nothing goes better with football than turkey and betting. BetOnline has you covered all holiday season. More props, odds and lines than ever before, BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this Thanksgiving. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile device, or mobile website, sorry, on your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with our promo code Locked On. And you'll receive that bonus if you use that promo. It's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college basketball, NHL, boxing, UFC, and even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, we're stuffed with deals this Thanksgiving. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called Directv Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with Directv Stream. Learn more at directv.com. That's directv.com. Compatible device is required and content varies by package. Once again, I want to thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. Oh, it's time for us to talk about the ballot. Yay. So, okay, this is my problem. And I said this on Twitter. I will read my tweet to you because this is what I said. And some people agree with me and others, writers, have had a problem with it. We've finally arrived at the first annual Writers Are Going to Be Gushing Over David Ortiz while completely ignoring his ties to PED's Hall of Fame season. I've been dreading this since he retired. For the record, I don't care about PEDs. I care about the hypocrisy of it all. Now, okay. That tweet has, it's not a lot. It's only 29 likes. 3 retweets. And 8 replies, a couple of them from writers who, I don't gush over David Ortiz. I'm like, I didn't call you out, so why are you defending yourself? Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this. I'm not looking forward to this at all. This was what I was dreading. I know that I'm going to just be apoplectic when the ballots start trickling out. I'm going to be really annoyed when I see the anonymous ones come out that have like one guy on them, because that always drives me crazy. And I say it every year. I'm not going to get mad about the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to get mad about the Hall of Fame ballots.
But you get mad about the Hall of Fame ballots.
I'm already.
Yeah.
And no one has submitted them yet. It's just out. They sent them out to everyone, and they haven't even been, people haven't voted yet. And I'm just preparing myself, I guess you can say, for nonsense. So, yeah. As you said, the 4 guys who were left last year, Clemens, Bonds, Sosa, Schilling. I don't see any of them getting in either.
No. And I think to your point about PEDs and the hypocrisy, you have to remember that the commissioner has done a lot to distance Ortiz from that group of PED users. Yes, there was, I can't remember the specifics, of something in 2003 with Ortiz. He is not considered part of that group. There probably are going to be people who cannot separate that, who put them all in the same category. And the timing is debatable because Clemens, Bonds, how early were they doing that? I read, look, I was younger. I read Game of Shadows. I can't remember exact timelines, but I want to say that it was before 2000. Does that absolve Ortiz of anything? No, I don't think so. And I do understand what you're trying to say. But they have the Red Sox, many people in baseball, and even the commissioner himself have gone out of their way to separate him from that group, wanting him to be judged on like different merits than them. So I think we are still going to David Ortiz is going to be a really interesting case to watch. So now my other point to this, Omar Vasquel is on the ballot again, right? And we now know that there's been some pretty horrific things that have come to light about domestic violence and sexual harassment. So there are a lot of people who say, they make the argument, this is a baseball related thing. We should only take into consideration what they did in baseball. And maybe this is apples to oranges a little bit because Omar Vizquel didn't use PEDs that we know of. Right. But I think there is a greater argument to be made for the Hall of Fame and for other awards to say, like, why do we want to elevate these people to like one of the highest echelons in the sport and society and like make them out to be like sort of heroic when they've done these awful things, which I think is also why people don't vote for Clemens, Bonds, Schilling. The PEDs are something that they don't think should be elevated. Like you shouldn't get rewarded. Yes, there's an asterisk. You did this, but could you have done it without the drugs? But I think that it's also just sort of like taking a stance of saying, these are not role models that we want to elevate to the highest level to honor in baseball's highest level, to give baseball's highest honor to. I think maybe there is some sort of like morality that plays a part in this.
Right. I did find it interesting, and this drove me nuts last year, or the year before. See, now I'm all discombobulated because of the pandemic and the timing of everything. But Curt Schilling had retweeted a picture of a guy wearing a shirt that said "Rope Tree Journalist."
Yes.
And that got a lot of the writers up in arms, and his numbers took a dip.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, why? I just don't.
But then the next year, his numbers went back up. So some of the people who didn't vote for him that year because of that T-shirt decided to vote for him again. And it was, I felt like, well, if you were offended by it last year, you should still be offended by it because it was disgusting. And
because we as humans sort of change our thinking at times. Like there are people who are voters who say, I vote based on this criteria and my criteria is consistent from year to year. But there are also voters who say, you know what? I went back. I feel differently about this than I did last year. This year I'm not completely changing the criteria that I'm voting on, but yeah, I've changed my line of thinking a little bit. So that's going to happen because we're humans and sometimes we change the way that we think. Mm-hmm. I don't know why you'd insult the people who are voting for you. And look, if somebody people insult me all the time. Okay. I'm on Twitter and I'm a woman in sports. I am insulted very often. And there's been athletes that I cover that I interview on a daily basis who haven't cared for me. Does that mean that I think anything differently of them and what their athletic abilities are and what their like legacy is? Not really. They're still great athletes. But I don't have a Hall of Fame vote. I am a member of the Baseball Writers Association, but I don't have a Hall of Fame vote. So I need to throw that out there, preface that. I just think that there are groups of voters who are considering the like morality factor of it all. And you might change the way that you think, but like maybe your principles stay the same, your underlying principles.
Yeah, it's tough because you have the people who make the argument, well, this guy's in the Hall of Fame and he was a POS. Can't say the word. But I'd like to think that maybe we get to the point where we change that line of thinking. And yes, stuff that certain guys did wasn't baseball related, but they got away with it because they were baseball players. Yeah. If these were just regular run-of-the-mill guys who were committing domestic violence, they'd be in jail and probably be locked up for a while, where these guys were...
Because a lot of that stuff isn't reported, but
that's true too.
I get what you're saying.
But you know what I mean? Like, these are guys who have money, they have connections, they have ways of intimidating the people that they're doing this to because they have the money and the power, you know? And that's just really crappy to think about, you know, because it's not just Vasquel. There are others that...
It's an abuse of power. I mean, look at what baseball has... Look at what's gone on this year with Jared Porter and Mickey Callaway and others. I mean, we are starting to see it's the landscape is changing, and there are a lot of people in the game, men and women, who think they should not be able to just get away with this, and there are a lot of, again, men and women who are very frustrated with the culture and that this culture makes their sport that they love so much and the teams that they love so much look bad.
Right.
So is that going to factor in the next few years in voting? I don't know. Probably not. I think if you're not voting for PED users, you're not voting for PE. If you didn't vote for them 10 years ago, you're probably not voting for them. There might be a few here and there, but like, are they going to gain the big numbers? I don't think any of those guys get in. Ortiz and A-Rod are some interesting cases because their characters have been celebrated so much, you know?
Yeah.
Ortiz, I mean, he's a hero in Boston. A-Rod, is A-Rod a hero in New York?
He should be.
How do you ever feel about A-Rod?
He should be, because you know what? Honestly, not that they don't win the DS and ALCS without him, but he played a big part in both of those series to elevate them to the World Series in order for Hideki Matsui to win World Series MVP. You know, I was at game 2 against the Angels in the ALCS. Up to that point, A-Rod had pretty much carried the Yankees. You know, he already had the big home run against Joe Nathan. He already did stuff in the first game against the Angels. And the Yankees found themselves down 3-2 in like the 11th inning because Sean Figgins hit a home run, put the Angels up 3-2.
I remember that.
And A-Rod was up against Fuentes, and I was sitting in 206, in the back of 206. It was brutally cold that night. Now, it was like 40 degrees, but it was damp. So it was cold. I was wearing 4 layers and just like, oh my God, I can't believe people are sitting out in the mist in this. This is ridiculous. This guy, right before A-Rod swings, yells out, "Earn your paycheck." Literally 2 seconds later, A-Rod hits the tying home run. So the guy next to me looks at the guy and says, "Did he earn his paycheck?" And then I punctuated it with a bad word. And then the guy next to me, we high-fived each other. But even after A-Rod was doing what he was doing in the 2009 World Series, people were still giving him crap. And I was just sitting there like, what do you want this guy to do? Like, what does he need to do? Does he need to hit a home run in every single at-bat for you to think that he's a true Yankee? He's been here 5 years now. Like, get over yourselves.
Well, so a lot of what the legacies are debated based on titles, right?
Right.
A-Rod won one World Series with the Yankees.
Right. But I know. This is what drives me crazy.
But he was an influential part in getting them there.
Right. And
which should be taken into consideration. But a lot of the times what it comes down to is, you know, David Ortiz got Boston to more championships than A-Rod did.
Right.
Whether that's right or wrong criteria, it is a criteria that some voters will vote on. Will vote based on.
It wasn't even
take into consideration.
Right. It wasn't even a voter, but someone replied to me like, A-Rod only won 1, Ortiz won 3. And it's like, well, yeah, because he had the team around him that did better than the Yankees teams. You know, but the thing about A-Rod is I feel like Yankee fans blame him for the early exits in those first few years. They blame him for 2004, which wasn't his fault. That was Joe Torre's fault for taxing the bullpen. And the Yankees had no business being up 3-0 on the Red Sox in the ALCS. The Red Sox were the better team. And that series just played out in such a strange way. 2005, the Angels were walking A-Rod most of the time. He didn't even get a chance to hit. It was Sheffield and Matsui who did nothing that series, and Sheffield and Bubba Crosby crashing into the wall in Anaheim trying to make a catch that lost that DS. 2006, off year for A-Rod, off year for the team. They had that rain delay for game 2, I think it was, because then I went to game 2 the next day and it was like a weird, I had to leave work early to go and the sun was setting and just, you know, that rain out kind of screwed the Yankees and helped the Tigers. Not that the Tigers maybe they would have won in 5 games, but I don't know. I felt like the Yankees were screwed by that rain delay and it kind of screwed the pitching.
2007, I mean, because by the nature of who won, people are going to be mad at A-Rod anyway.
Right.
Your Yankee fans at least are going to be mad at him because the Red Sox won.
Right.
And they announced his like deal in the middle of the World Series, and that was very poor form. I mean, the commissioner hates that. The commissioner hates that.
That was, oh my God, and I remember when it happened, I wasn't watching the World Series because I never watch when the Red Sox are in, except when I have to, and I had to in 2018 when I was working for BP. But when that news came out, I'm like, what is he doing? What is he doing? Why? Like, I always wanted to like meet up with A-Rod and be like, dude, what? Why? What's the matter with you?
That was his agent that did that, but
like, like Boris, what are you doing?
What's he have to lose? He doesn't lose any money either way. Guys are still going to sign with him. He is going to get his clients regardless of, whether the league says, please don't do that or not.
Right.
What's it mean to him?
Oh, then, 2008, they don't even make the playoffs. That's not entirely his fault. He did have kind of a down year compared to 05, 07 when he won the MVPs. So, and then 2009 happens, and oh God, I just, when he came back from having the hip surgery and after all the PED stuff and the Selena Roberts article and all that stuff, and then he goes into Baltimore and he hits a home run, his first at bat, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be great. And that was the first year that A-Rod didn't give a crap about anything. He just played and he tried to do his thing, and it actually worked out for him for the first time. And then he didn't take that lesson to heart, and he had some rough times in between there. But I feel like
now, like the networks have been trying to position him as this like lovable analyst. I don't think it's working out that well. I don't. Maybe that's just in New York where I'm seeing a lot of fans tweeting about A-Rod. Maybe in, I don't know, Arizona or Texas, where he did previously play, people are enjoying his commentary more, but I just see the bad tweets about how much people don't enjoy his commentary here.
Well, he's better at post-game and pre-game. He's better at. He's horrible in the booth. And I said this on, oh God, what show did I say this on? They should have had him practice being in the booth first. They shouldn't have thrown him in there right away.
Well, they do some media training. I've worked for Fox Sports. I worked for Fox Sports for 5 years, so I know that they do. There is a guy in California that they send.
No, but I feel like he should have done it for like 2 years. What I mean?
Play-by-play, not play-by-play, but color commentary.
Color.
It's very difficult. I've done both. There's a reason I don't do both for my career right now. Like at one point in college, I like wanted to be, one of the first like women play-by-play broadcasters, and there's a reason I don't do that. It's very hard.
Right.
You've got to get the tone and the pacing right. And I don't know if Fox specifically sent him to the same guy who's been working with a lot of Fox Sports talent out in LA for a long time, or if maybe they just had him.
Would it be Fox or people? But would it be Fox or ESPN? Because ESPN is the one that threw him into the booth. Not like Fox did, but then
neither one of them are throwing people into the booth without media training.
Right. Well, no, but it felt that way just because they were like
own like, I don't know, like in-house, like something like their own in-house people who work with broadcasters. I don't know the specifics of that because I did not work for ESPN. I worked for Fox. But I know that they're not, like a lot of athletes go to these, they gravitate towards these networks because they will give them training after their careers are done. And they do feel like they're being set up for another career. Like they're not just being thrown to the wolves. They gravitate towards these big networks because these networks work with them and show them how to get better.
I don't know. I feel like he was so much better when he was on Fox, post-game, post-season, especially 2015 when he first started. Red Sox fans were joking about how, oh my God, I actually like A-Rod better than I ever liked Curt Schilling now because he just seems so different on TV. And then
And I have friends who work for Fox Sports who say that he's great to work with. He's very respectful of the crew. He participates in meetings. He uses the researchers. He wants to know. And it's tough because you do hear people saying all the time, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But he can take the notes from his researchers and do what he wants with them. And he also, he because he played, he's going to go back to some of his own experiences. Now, whether he sounds like he knows what he's talking about or whether he's like legitimately just talking and pulling things out of thin air, that could be the case too. But he is very engaged in the process of putting these broadcasts together, from what I understand.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I know. But I just feel like he's regressed since he went into the booth in ESPN. And I know it's difficult to do a game because you have to say so much more while the game is happening, even as a color person. Like the play-by-play does their thing. You have to add to it. It's not just post-game and pre-game where you have like a set 20 minutes where you're talking, and not even 20 minutes. You have like a 5-minute segment or a 3-minute segment, and you do your post-game stuff and you riff off the other guys on the post-game set. I feel like, oh God, he's a baseball savant. There was one time where someone mentioned something that he did in 1996. He remembered the pitcher. He remembered the pitch. He remembered the inning. Who the hell does that? Only a baseball savant like A-Rod would do that.
I feel like he's been lacking in the broadcast is his sort of like anti-analytic stance. Maybe not anti-analytic stance, but like it's something that has become a lot more commonplace and like mainstream. I know as a writer who writes for a general sports audience, I will use some analytics. Now, I do not write analytical deep dives or full breakdowns because that's the kind of stuff that's better suited for Fangraphs or Baseball Prospectus.
Yep.
Also, I can't do math. I can take a few key stats that help explain or support an argument and use them as like tools in a toolbox to tell the story, part of the story, not make it the story. I'm good at that sometimes. Right. But I think because some of that stuff has become, especially there's so many fans like on Fangraphs or Baseball Prospectus looking up these things every game, like in the middle of games. Fans are smarter than we give them credit for sometimes. And for him to just sort of like spurn a lot of the advanced thinking, I think it's turned people off.
Right. And it's not just an A-Rod problem because, you hear baseball has a problem with some of their broadcasters kind of bad-mouthing the current state of baseball and how baseball is played, how baseball is set up now, like with the analytics, and John Smoltz being a big culprit on Fox. And if you want to have national games and former players promoting your sport, having them against the stuff that's making your sport the way it is in 2021 doesn't seem like a very good idea. We can get more into that, and we have to end.
Maybe that's one of our lockout shows. We'll talk about broadcasting.
Yeah, because I went to school for broadcasting in the Stone Ages and didn't really get into it until I started podcasting. So I never did play-by-play. I only did radio updates in Oswego. Those were lots of fun. Got the stuff off the wire back then, off the fax machine wire, and read everything, and no digital stuff back in 1990s. I was literally splicing tape and taping it together and using actual cartridges to do my promos and stuff, and now everything is so much easier with the digital stuff, I have to say. I'm like so much better now with all this stuff. I was actually pretty good because I'm a Virgo, so I was very exact with the tapes and everything. And my teachers were professors were pretty impressed with how, I made things really good. But I was broadcasting major in the Stone Ages. A lot of things have changed since then. And baseball has changed. I mean, even in the last 10 years, baseball has changed with its relationship with analytics. And yes, we will definitely do a lockout episode about that because there's a lot to be said.
One thing to end on then, since this was our Hall of Fame episode, who would you vote in this year?
Ooh, okay. See, I'm a jackass. I would totally put Bonds and Clemens in. Just to see people's heads explode. Oof. I would have to think about this, actually.
Yeah.
I would have to sit with this because there are guys on there that I feel like should be in that haven't gotten in yet. I feel like Omar Vizquel, he just shouldn't even smell the Hall of Fame. But there are people who feel like he should.
On baseball,
this is a tough one. That's why I was kind of worried about this for the people who are actually voting on this. This is kind of a tough ballot, because you have the people who think special guys make it on the first try. You know, they still have that sort of
Yeah.
thing going. And I mean, does David Ortiz make it in on the first ballot? You never know. It's possible, but then you might have holdouts thinking, no, let's keep him out for a year. But then who the hell goes in? Is this going to be another one of those years where there's like one or two people that gets in
Yeah.
and they
I mean,
totally shut
last
out?
year there was nobody. Last year there was
Yeah.
nobody. This could be a repeat. However, the one reason I think we might not is because we could have a lockout, so there's like nothing else to
Right.
discuss, and there's nothing else for like a lot of the voters to do. They're not covering a lot of
Right.
news or like there's no hot stove right now, so like that could influence like, all right, well now I have time to like do a serious deep dive, more so than in more years. They're also going to be listening to some of the conversation, like the talk radio is going to be dominated by Hall of Fame conversation because there's nothing else to talk about. So maybe it's different because of the lockout this year.
Yeah, could be. How about you? What do you think? Same thing where you'd have to look and figure it out?
I would say I might vote Helton. I gotta maybe do a deeper dive on some of these guys, but at first glance, I might vote Helton.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to look at the numbers from last year and
Yeah.
see how certain guys improved and if guys, stayed at the same level. But yeah, it's really interesting with the Clemens, Bonds, Sosa, Schilling thing. That's what I'm really going to look for because there's going to be a lot of writers sitting there being like, I don't know. Do we do it or do we not do it? And I feel like, there's a new influx of younger writers coming in also who have gotten Hall of Fame votes within the last few years who
that makes a difference.
Kind of changing. I mean, I was shocked, but so thrilled that Mike Messina got in. And when they announced it too, I noticed there were 4 sheets and I thought to myself, oh my God, I think he made it. And then as soon as I heard the guy say knuckle curve, I started screaming. And my mom was like, what's the matter? I'm like, Mike Messina made the Hall. And I started crying. I was so excited because it took him that long. It took him a long time, but people started realizing, you know what? He may not have won a Cy Young. He may not have won 20, and he finally did it in 08. But he was consistent in the AL East his entire career against all these roided up guys. And you know what? He should be in the Hall of Fame just for surviving that. So yeah, it's just interesting to see the process. And I kind of wish I could sit with someone who has the Hall of Fame vote and swear on my life that I wouldn't tell anyone, but just to see what their process is and how they go through it. Because like you said, they're going to have a lot of time if this lockout happens before the deadline.
Some of them have already made their decisions though. I saw a few writers had tweeted that they've already sent their ballots out.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Or that they've already decided their ballot. So like you don't know. Some of them some of them know from the get-go who they're voting for, who they're not voting for. They have done the legwork already. Some of them don't procrastinate. Like, so I would.
Me too. I wrote a whole book chapter the day before it was due. So, yeah, I'm the worst procrastinator. No, I shouldn't say I'm the worst. I'm the best procrastinator on earth because I was able to get a book chapter done the day before it was due. So yeah,
Impressive.
That's not worst. I would say that's best. So yeah, we'll have more to talk about with this. Like we said, we're going to have different things to talk about during the lockout, but yeah, Hall of Fame ballots will be trickling out then. And when we get a good picture of how we think things will go, we'll definitely have to record a show about that because it'll be interesting to see how things go. All right, so that's it for this episode of Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd like to remind you that you can listen to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you get your podcast. You can watch and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can leave comments. Actually, let us know about your Hall of Fame thoughts on the comments of this episode if you're watching. And when you get into your car, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Bets. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. One more thing, if you could be so kind, please rate the podcast and spread the word about this podcast to your fellow Yankee fans. We would really appreciate it. Enjoy your Tuesday evening and enjoy the rest of your week if you guys are going away places, because I know people like to travel for Thanksgiving. And be safe, everyone.